If statement, part 2. In this lesson we will continue what we did in the last lesson. I will show you more about the if statement and more examples, simple examples of how to use it. Let's begin. In this case, this is the code from the last lesson. We have a variable with the name of a and the value of 2. And we check if it's bigger than 1. If it's bigger than 1, execute whatever is within these curly brackets, which is print a is bigger. But what if it's the opposite? Let's say -2, and a is smaller than 1 and is not bigger than 1, and we want something to happen by default. We have another syntax which is called else, which is it's not the opposite condition, it's called the default condition. So if this doesn't happen, if this is not true, go here. There's also else if, but we'll cover it next time. So you might have more than one condition. So the last else is the default. What happens if this doesn't run? So let's copy this, paste it here, and just add not. A is not bigger. So because a is -2, the else will run. So what happens here is that the Java compiler first goes for this condition, and it sees that it's not true. This statement is not true. A is not bigger than 1. So it doesn't enter here and run this code. In this case we have 1 line of code. In other cases you might have 10 lines of code or more or less. So it skips this and it goes here. You might think that if you write this outside of the parentheses, it will run if this doesn't run. Let's say like this. So this will run even if this doesn't run, even if this runs, it doesn't matter. We want a default condition that will run only if this case does not run. Again, if this statement is false, this code will not run. Instead, the else code will run. The default, it's basically the default of this if statement. Okay, let's do another type of if statement. Let's make another int and call it b and give it a value of 3. And let's do another if statement, a test. If b is equals to 3. Then run this code inside here, inside the curly brackets. s.o let's do this. b equals 3. Let's see. Now this will run and print this probably, and it will also print this afterwards in the next line. As you can see, a is not bigger and b is equals 3. Here you see another operator, equals. It's a mathematical operator. If you learned mathematics in the university, you must know that equals in that sense means that b contains 3 and 3 is also b in this particular case. So the equals mean equals on both sides. Here the equals means set b to 3. Here the equal means actually equals. So what the if checks here is if b is equals to 3. So if we change this to 5, you will see only one line will run, because we don't have anything by default and else by default to run if this does not run. Well, in this case we don't mind. I just wanted to show you how to compare between two values. You can also compare between two variables. Let's say int c equals 3. So we can put c, let's not forget the semicolon, the c here instead of the b. So if we change b to 3, they are equal, as you can see. So if we again change b to, let's say, 13, this will not run, and nothing will run. That's fine by us, because we only wanted this as a code of block that runs if this condition is met. You know, the decision making part. This is how you tell the computer to decide stuff. So if b is equals to c, you do this. If not, do nothing. So there are more types of data types, like strings. You can't use this operator for a string. Let's say we have a string that holds a name. Let's call it name. And let's write Joe. Now we want to check if the name is Joe. You can't do this. This will not work. You need to use a method called equals. Inside of it, you will put the test value, which is Joe. Let's say Joe. So if it's Joe, we will say hello Joe. It says hello Joe. Okay, let's say we want to test if the name equals John. So in this case, it will not run because the name is Joe. You see, the name does not equals John, this is the test value. We can also put, let's do another string and call it test name. And give it a value of John and put it here instead of this hard-coded value. We will have a variable value to test against. So this if tests it's test between strings. In our case I called it name and test name, so you'll have some kind of realistic reference, like testing for a name. This can also be for testing, let's say, password. It's not the most effective way to test for a password, but it can be done. You can also test for, I don't know, other things. Well, when we get to advanced stuff about strings, you will see you can test a lot of stuff, but this is a very basic test to test if one string is equals to another string. This string might come from an input or database or whatever. So we want to test it. If this is John, we say hello John. Okay, that's all I wanted to cover for this lesson. If you don't understand anything, you can either use the Q&A, rewatch the videos, or search for other materials that might explain it better. I always suggest my students to search for other sources if they get stuck. Sometimes you'll find on Google tutorials you understand better or people that explain better. In any case, I don't expect you to be able to write programs at this stage or actually use it for something practical. I just want you to understand it as it is, the syntax. Later we will use it a lot, as ifs are used a lot in programming. For now I just want you to understand this basic use, how to compare between strings, how to compare between numbers, how to check if a number is bigger or smaller, and how to use else. That's it. Later we will use it for more practical projects. So yeah, that's basically it. There's the Q&A. If you have any questions, you can ask me via the Q&A. And that's it for this lesson.